Namaste, Namaskar. And so it happens. Nand Ghera Nand Bhayo Jai Kanaiya Lal Ki. Krishna is born um, in the most atypical circumstances and is slowly growing. Kans is trying to send all these demons and mal influences to take him down, and then uh, even though a little baby, uh, Shri Krishna is giving all those big time Daityas, Rakshas, uh, a hard time. So now, because the Lord Himself has taken the form of a human, has to go through the different sanskars. So the namakaran, the naming ceremony. Vasudev had another son by Rohini, whom he had also given in Nanda's care. And the time came when he wanted both boys to be named. So he summoned Gargarishi, who was the guru of Yadavs, and asked him to perform the ceremonies. Garg said, "It would indeed be a pleasure to do this for you. But have you thought of what would happen if Kans came to know that your guru had performed a ceremony for this kind in Nanda's house? Would he not then suspect the child to be yours and not Nanda's? No, it is too dangerous." But Vasudev was not to be put off so easily. He said, "That is my responsibility, O revered teacher. We shall perform the ceremony very quickly, and to be on the safe side, we shall hold it in the Goshala, the cowshed, where nobody will suspect that anything is going on." Vasudev was anxious to have this purificatory rite performed as soon as possible because of the recent disasters which had threatened the child, and also because Garg was a rishi of great spiritual power. And so the day was fixed. The sage performed the ceremony and then named the children. The elder of the two shall be called Ram because of his charming and virtuous ways, and Bal because of his extraordinary strength. He shall also be called Samkarshana because he will unite the Yadavs together. This other boy assumes different colors in different ages. This time he has a dark complexion, therefore he shall be called Krishna. Being the son of Vasudev, he shall also be known as Vasudev. He has many names, forms, and attributes. No one ever fully will know them. He will give you great joy and blessing. He shall save you from many mishaps, and he has saved others in the past. Those who love him wholeheartedly shall never know danger or fear. Those who love him wholeheartedly shall never know any danger or heartedly fear. He has all the qualities of Narayan. Know him to be the same. Having made these profound statements, Garga Rishi blessed the two boys and left Gokul. Balaram and Krishna were now growing up fast. Slowly, they started crawling on their hands and knees, and before long they were toddling unsteadily from one place to another. They wandered anywhere their chubby little legs would take them. There was not a place in Gokul they had not crawled to. They loved to hear the sound of their own tinkling anklet bells, and this would take them further and further away from home. Then, as if frightened, they would turn towards home as soon as their little legs would take them and rush into the open arms of the waiting mother. As the days went by, the boys became more and more naughty, particularly Krishna, who was the more mischievous of the two. He would pull the tails of the calves and allow himself to be dragged all over the place. His mother would be full of anxiety, and a time came when she could not give her full attention to the house because she had to keep a constant watch over Krishna. Balarama, of course, gave his little brother a hand in everything they did. Krishna had a partiality for milk, butter, and curds, so all his efforts would be directed in procuring these goodies. In the afternoon, when the hot sun made everyone doze, he would tiptoe stealthily into the kitchen, not only his own, but also that of the neighbors. He would signal to his cronies to come and aid him in his little acts of mischief. Together, they would break the mud pots and salvage delicious fresh butter and creamy curds. Because of their inefficiency in eating, they would invariably get their hands and faces properly smeared with butter and cream. Whatever remained, they would give to the monkeys and the calves. Now, when the gopis found out that the scamps had been at their pots of butter and cream, they would go to Yashoda and solely complain to her about the pranks of her beloved son. Yashoda would catch him by the ear and drag him to be punished. But Krishna would look at her with such a pathetic mixture of pure innocence and unconfessed guilt that she would not have the heart to punish him. He would hang his head in shame and look really sorry for what he had done. The moment his mother had forgiven him, he would run off and get back to all his old forms of mischief, working out in his little tricky schemes to make them more varied and interesting. Balalila. One day, Balaram and a few other little boys complained to Yashoda that Krishna had swallowed handful of mud. So she scolded him for it, but he only looked at her with his big black eyes and said, Mother, I swallow mud? No chance, that's not true. You may examine my mouth if you think I'm lying. Open it, she said. He opened his mouth, and once again she saw in it the whole of the creation. Yashoda was dazed. She bowed her head before the Lord and said, If you are indeed the absolute Brahman, then my salutations to you. For it is by your Maya that I appear as Yashoda and this child as my son. Then slowly her mind came back from this supreme revelation to her world in Gokul. She picked up that little troublesome Krishna and kissed him tenderly with motherly affection and love, for once again he was her own little boy. Now, there was a festival that was going on. Everyone was busy preparing for it. People were running here and there now, setting up the festoons and sprinkling the streets with water and getting the carnival ready and preparing the spicy foods and delicious sweetmeats. No one had time for anything else. In Nand's house, the maidservants were all busy, hustling and bustling to and fro with thalis of flowers, chandan, and kumkum for worship. Some were engaged in decorating the house to look festive. Others were bent over the fires in the huge open kitchens where food for the many was being cooked. So Yashoda had to look to the boiling of the milk and the churning of the curds herself. She puts the milk on the fire to boil and sat down a little distance away to churn the curds. As she pulled the rope to turn the churner, swinging to the right and left, slowly, gracefully, she sang softly to the rhythmic sound of the movements of the mud pot. And the songs she sang were of the pranks of naughty Krishna. Nothing gave her greater pleasure than to think about them over and over again. For her mind was absolutely filled with them. After some time, Krishna, hungry from his deeds of mischief, toddled up to his mother, grubby and tired. He climbed onto her lap and asked to be fed. Yashoda smiled at him indulgently and gave him his feed. But just then the milk on the fire caught her eye. It was now about to boil over. So she put her baby down hastily and hurried over to the fire. Krishna was annoyed at this, so he broke the mud pot containing the curds. Then he ran away to a quiet corner and feasted on the butter. When he had his fill and messed up his face properly with it, he distributed the remaining butter among the monkeys. This he thoroughly enjoyed. He teased the monkeys with the butter first and then gave it to them generously. Then he danced around and clapped his hands in joy, and his dangling earrings caught the sparkling rays of the sun. Yashoda came back to her churning and found her pot broken. She looked around for the culprit but could not find him anywhere. Finally, she found him in the courtyard feeding the monkeys. He looked up at her in startled innocence, and then seeing that she was determined to punish him, he started running as fast with his little legs would carry him. Yashoda, of course, chased him down with a stick. Wait till I catch you, you little rascal. The gopis are right. From the moment you get up in the morning till the time you are in the bed at night, you are nothing but a big nuisance. This time I shall punish you good and proper. I will teach you a lesson. Krishna panted ahead, but Yashoda was not far behind. At last she caught him and would have spanked him too, but she saw big tears running down his cheeks, and she rubbed his eyes with his tiny knuckles. Her gentle heart melted instantly, so she decided to tie him up instead. She took a great big length of rope and tied him to the mortar, but the rope fell short by 2 inches. So she ran into the house and got another length of rope. This time it looked long enough, but again it fell short by 2 inches. So she went and got some more rope, and still it was short. જેટલી વાર દોરડું લાવે એટલી વાર નાનું પડે. But no matter how many pieces she joined together, strange, it always fell short by 2 inches. She just could not understand this. By now she was perspiring and her hair had become loose and disheveled. She looked at him in utter despair, mingled with shame and embarrassment. Despair because the whole thing made absolutely no sense to her, and shame and embarrassment because, well, he was her own son, was he not? And to think that she could not even tie him up when she wanted to. Krishna knew her thoughts and laughed inwardly at her obvious confusion. Then, knowing that she could not take any more teasing, he allowed himself to be bound. This is the way the Lord plays with those who love him. It is an endless game of catch me if you can. Nobody can, but ultimately he yields to the will of the sincere bhakt devotees and allows himself to be bound, not by ropes and chains, but by the very nature of their all-consuming, overpowering love for him. This is so amazing. The musician can never be without his song. The artist is automatically drawn towards his canvas and brushes. The dancer is thrilled by the sound of jingling bells. The mischievous thrive on the mischief. So here was Krishna, itching to do something naughty, but tied to a huge mortar, many times his weight and size. As he sat there, just a little glum, his eyes caught sight of 2 Arjun trees standing side by side. So he stood up and waddled up to them with the mortar dragging heavily behind. Now the mortar got wedged between the trees, and Krishna gave a hard pull to get himself free. Both trees came crashing down, trunks, roots, and all. 2 shining beings flew, and the space shone with their light. They bowed down before Krishna and sang hymns in his praise. These 2 heavenly beings, who were the sons of Kuber, the god of wealth, were drunk with pride and were at one time cursed by Narad, to whom they had shown disrespect. Narad ji had told them that they would remain imprisoned in the Arjun trees till a time when Krishna would come and liberate them. When they heard the crash, Yashoda and some of the gopis came running out to see what had happened. Some of the Gopa boys had watched everything, and they related to them the whole incident. But it was so hard for the young mothers to believe this, for there was the cherub wedged between the Arjun trees, playing in the mud as if nothing out of the ordinary had happened. And yet there lay the trees prostrate on the ground. What were they to make of this. Why was it always Krishna who got into scrapes? The gopis and the gopis of Vraj loved him very deeply indeed, and this they could not explain. But they had yet to learn of his divine nature and the purpose of the games he played with them. One day there was a big shout, "Fruits! Come and buy my juicy fruits!" It was noon, and with the sun directly overhead, it was hot too. The cry of the fruit seller broke upon the stillness of the day. Little Krishna heard the cry and ran out, for he loved juicy fruits. The fruit seller saw that he had nothing to give her, but she liked his innocent looks and charming smile. She took her basket down and hunted around for the best of her fruits with which she filled his little hands. Krishna's baby face lit up with delight, and he put into her basket 2 handfuls of paddy. And lo and behold, when she picked up her basket again, the paddy had turned into gold and diamonds and other precious gems. ભગવાનને તમે આપો એટલે એ થોડી કે એમને જરૂર છે કશાની. He doesn't need anything. He's going to give you tremendously back. So don't be shy or miserly in giving. One day, all the elders of Gokul got together at Nand's house. They talked about the recent calamities that had befallen their village. Gokul had always been peaceful. Never had the simple village folk seen such strange phenomena. Never had they been so troubled and disturbed by the constant tricks and plots of the Rakshas. They decided that it was now much too dangerous to stay in Gokul and that a solution to their problem had to be found. Upananda was the wisest and oldest of them all. He looked at them gravely and said, "Of late, Braj has been visited by many misfortunes. By some stroke of luck, the child was saved from the baby-killing Rakshasi. Only by the grace of Sri Vishnu did he escape the demon Trivartasur, and Sri Vishnu alone saved him from being crushed by the Arjuna trees. Gokul has now become unsafe for all of us. It would be foolish to stay on. Let us therefore migrate to a forest called Vrindavan. It is cool and undisturbed, and the grass is always green. It is the best place for our cattle and our people. The gopis, gopis, and the cattle will all enjoy the lovely surrounding of Vrindavan with the holy Yamuna flowing close by. Let us get our carts and carriages ready. Send the cows and their calves in advance. Have I your consent?" "Yes, yes, well said," cried the elders with one voice. So the decision was taken. That very night, the people of Vraj packed up their possessions and belongings. They yoked the oxen to the carriages and put the women, children, and old people on them first. The cows were driven in advance. The people followed, beating drums and blowing shanks. The gopis dangled their legs over the sides of the carts and merrily sang songs as they went along. All the children were excited, and the mothers had to keep an eye on them to keep them out of trouble. At last they arrived at Vrindavan. Krishna and Balaram were full of joy when they saw the green pasture lands of Vrindavan, the sacred hill Govardhan in the distance, and the rippling waters of the Yamuna. When the boys had grown a little older, they were given the calves to graze on the pasture lands. They tended the calves along with other boys. While the calves grazed, they would romp around on the cool grass and play games. One day, they had taken the calves to the pastures. A wicked Asur who wanted to kill them all assumed the form of a calf and mingled with the rest of the herd. Krishna saw this and pointed it out to Balaram. Quietly, he sneaked up on the calf from behind and caught it by its hind legs. He whirled it round and round and round and dashed it against a kapitha tree. The animal died at once, and its body turned into an awful Rakshas. The gop boys cheered loudly. Krishna was the hero of the day. In the dark woods, Krishna and the gops had gone to a tank to quench their thirst and to have a cool wash. When they came out, they saw before them what looked like a huge mountain. It was, in fact, an asur in the form of a monstrous crane. That bird crane, the monster now rushed at Krishna and held him fast in his beak. The gopis panicked at the sight and some of them even fainted. The crane was called Bakasur, and he had been sent by Kans to destroy Krishna. Now Krishna generated so much heat within his body that it began to scorch the throat of the Asur. The Baka, the crane, suddenly spat out the divine boy and made another attack on him with his sharp beak. Krishna pressed down the beak of the giant bird with his foot, and with his hand he tore it apart. The Asur fell down dead. The Devas who were watching the fight were greatly pleased. They beat their celestial drums and blew their shank and showered heavenly flowers upon Krishna. The Gopas were soon revived and embraced Krishna affectionately. Back in Vrindavan, they told their elders the story of how Krishna had killed the demon Bakasur. They were indeed very pleased that the boy had been saved from the jaws of death, but not understanding his divine nature, they could not explain how Krishna managed to escape from every danger that he was subjected to. Now, after Bakasur comes Aghasur. So many attempts at the little baby. One day, Krishna desired to have breakfast in the forest. He rose early in the morning and played his flute. The goat heard the sweet melody and woke up too. They came out of their houses in thousands, their calves following them. They were truly in high spirits as they made their way to the forest. Some goats played their flutes and blew their horns. Some hummed like the bees, and some cooed like the koyals. Some chased the shadows of the birds, others imitated the graceful gaits of the swans, still others stood like storks, and some danced the proud dance of peacocks. Some goats pulled the tails of monkeys and climbed the trees after them. It was all tremendous fun. They skipped and romped about. They played, wrestled, and joked and chattered ceaselessly. They teased and raced and laughed and sang. And not one of them was aware of the danger that lay ahead of them. There was a demon called Agha, who was the younger brother of Putana and Bakasur. He was fully determined to avenge their deaths. He swore to himself that he would kill Krishna and all the laughing, chattering goats. Agha stretched himself in the form of a huge python, 1 yojan long. He opened wide his mouth. His lower jaw rested on earth and his upper jaw touched the clouds. He lay quite still and waited patiently for the gops to draw near. When the gops came near the waiting Asur, they playfully started speculating about the nature of the huge monstrosity before them. Some said it was a colossal serpent, others said it was a goddess of Vrindavan, and yet said it was just a geographical, yet others said that it was just a geographical feature of the forest. Then they said, so what if it is a serpent? We will surely be saved from it like we were saved from the crane Baka. So saying, they walked straight into the mouth of the serpent. They clapped their hands joyfully and bubbling with laughter. They with the calves walked along the tongue of the villainous Asur, thinking it would be a smooth road. Now, Krishna had known of this death trap, but he had no time to warn his companions, so engrossed were they in their merrymaking. The demon Aghasur did not immediately close his mouth because his main aim was to kill Krishna. Krishna pondered for a while as to what would be the best course to take. After a moment or two, he himself entered the mouth of the giant serpent. Carefully, he wedged himself in Aghasur's throat, preventing him from breathing. Aghasur choked and they breathed his last. With great speed, Krishna brought his friends out and saved them just as they were about to be consumed by the demon's gastric fire. The Devs again rejoiced and burst forth in songs in praise of the Lord. Kansa, the scheming fiend, found himself in deep distress. His evil intentions had again been defeated. But it so happened that the story reached Braj only a year later. This is how sorry, had been defeated. Now, the next incident is a very, very important incident. This is where Brahmaji himself, his moh, was being shattered. So, after the killing of the Rakshas Aghasur, Krishna and the gopis went to the river bank. They were hungry and the hour was late. Each boy took out his own packet of food. They all sat in a circle and Krishna sat in their midst. While they were thus engrossed in the eating of their food, the cattle strayed away along the river bank. For some time, the Gop boys missed their cattle and were worried and wore worried frowns on their faces. They got up to search for them, but Krishna said, "No, don't bother. Sit down and finish your meal. I will go and look for them. I'll soon be back." So the boys went back to their meal and Krishna went to look for the missing cows. Now, Brahmaji had witnessed Krishna's tricks and his extraordinary strength and prowess. He felt a longing to experience Krishna's prowess for himself. So, in a moment of mischief, he hid all the cows in the mountain cave. Krishna searched high and low in the forest, the hills, and the valleys, but nowhere could he find even a trace of the calves. So he returned to the river banks to report the matter to the gopis. There, to his utter astonishment, he found the gopis missing too. What was he to make of these strange disappearances? He meditated deeply and then came to know that it was all a trick of Brahmaji to test his divinity. He smiled and decided that he would please Brahma and at the same time give an infinite experience of bliss to the mothers of the gopis and to the cows. So, what did he do? He multiplied himself and assumed the forms of the gopis and their tender cows. He assumed their exact size, the exact number of hands and feet, holding an equal number of staves, horns, and flutes, wearing the same clothes and jewelry. He, in his different forms, copied to the last detail their individual behaviors, qualities, names, appearances, ages, voices, even their characteristic moves. Ek na anek, થઈ ગયા ભગવાન. When it was dusk and the sun was preparing to set for the night, Krishna and all the Krishna gopis and the Krishna cows wended their way back to their homes. When the mothers heard the sound of the flutes and the horns, they came running out to embrace their children. They hugged the boys close to their hearts and fed them with tremendous joy. The cows too showed much tenderness towards their calves. Vrindavan was bathed in ecstatic love. The Lord, who is the essence of all beings, thus received the love of many thousand human and animal mothers. He in turn filled their devoted hearts with supreme bliss which arises from a total, all consuming love. Nobody noticed any change, except that the mothers started loving their boys more and more. Krishna, along with the mind born Krishna gopis and the Krishna cows, would every morning go to the forest as usual. Every house, every family in Braj was filled with an atmosphere of the highest kind of love. And thus days passed till almost a year was over. One day, as the cows were grazing on the summit of Govardhan, they felt a tremendous upsurge of love for their calves, which were grazing near Braj. Breathlessly, the cows rushed down the hillside to the cows. Balarama was watching all this and he thought, "Never have I ever seen these cows display such great love towards their calves." Even the mothers loved their goats more than they ever did. Then, addressing Krishna, he said, "These cows and their keepers, the boys, have all started looking like you, Krishna. What is the mystery? I am baffled." Krishna then explained to him all that had happened. Brahma now became curious to see how Krishna had met the tricky situation he had put him into. So he mounted his swan and went to see. And A more puzzled person there never was. For before him he saw two sets of goats and their calves, one lot which he had imprisoned in the caves, and one lot which was as usual tending the animals in the forest. Just as a hazy darkness disappears in the total darkness of the night, just as the light of the glowworm disappears in the light of the morning sun, so too Brahmaji's Maya seemed to have disappeared in the overpowering Maya of Bhagavan. Brahma had been caught by his own Maya. He was dazed and confused. Suddenly the haze before his eyes lifted, and he saw the goats and the calves assuming the dark complexion of Sri Krishna. Then he saw them all in the form of Sri Vishnu, four-armed, with the holding the divine Shankh, Chakra, Gada, and Kamal, beaming with resplendent glory. The confusion now cleared, and he understood what had happened. Brahmaji then alighted from his swan and bowing deeply prostrated before Krishna. Then he rose and offered praise to the Lord. Brahmaji went thrice around Krishna, mounted his swan, and disappeared, and along with him also disappeared the Krishna gops and the Krishna cows. Under the trees were now sitting the original boys, and their cows were grazing not far away. Krishna joined them for the meal and laughingly showed them the corpse of the python which he had killed only an hour ago. As evening drew near, the gops picked their way back to Vraj. There they related to the elders how Krishna had killed Aghasur. They remembered nothing of what had happened to them meanwhile, since they had been under Brahmaji's spell. Only Krishna and Balaram knew the whole story, and they kept it secret. The people of Vraj treasured all of Krishna's deeds in their memories and turned them into songs, and yet they remained ignorant of his divine nature. Now comes next Dhenukasur Vadam, the killing of the Rakshas Dhenukasur. I bow to the child of Nanda who has kept his lotus feet in the beautiful pond of my devoted heart and who has lovely tresses. I bow to the child after whom Nanda is mad with love, who destroys all sins, who protects the whole universe, and who is the very heart of the cowherds. Shlok છે, શ્લોકનો આ meaning છે. Krishna had killed Aghasur when he was just 5 years old. With his fifth year began his boyhood from 5th to 16th year. He was no more a Kumar, he was a Pauganda Vaya, the age between 6 and 15 years. At this stage in the story, we find that everyone is irresistibly attracted towards Krishna, more than ever. It is the nature of the human mind to adore beauty in whatever form it is conceived. The five sense organs, as well as the mind and the intellect, are thrilled by the individual beauties they are capable of perceiving. Thus, the eyes can sense the beauty of perfect form and color. The inner ear reacts joyously to melodious and sweet music. The tongue registers the beauty of taste. A beautiful fragrance is perfect beauty for the nose. And the ripples of a cool breeze, the warm embrace of loving ones are the beauty to the skin. બધા વિષય સુખ છે આ બધા. Similarly, the mind adores at the altar of beautiful poetry and noble sentiments, and the intellect pays homage to the sheer brilliancy of the thoughts of the masters of this world. Whenever we see beauty, whether it be physical beauty of a person or a marvelous artist or a world famous musician, whether it be the best dancer or the best scientist, the best cook or the best philosopher, we cannot but help admire them for the extraordinary expression of their individual beauty. If people are thus loved and respected the world over for even one great quality that they may possess, what then would be the condition of one who has all these qualities? Such then was the case with Krishna. He had the most charming physical appearance which endeared him at once to all his devotees. From the Bhagavad Gita, we know that he was the greatest philosopher, thinker, poet, and musician. There was not a single quality with which this divine boy did not possess. What wonder then that he was dearly beloved of all the people of his time? There were, of course, exceptions like Kansa, who were so steeped in ignorance that they could not look at anything beautiful beyond their own vanity. Krishna was thus dear to his parents because he was not beautiful. There is beauty in duty, and obedient. His friends loved him because of his friendly nature and cheerfulness. The neighbors loved him because he protected them from all dangers. The gopis loved him because he was beautiful and the divinity of his very being. And the rishis and the sages loved him because he had achieved victory over his senses. Indriya Nigra. Krishna was undoubtedly the darling of all. Time passed and the boys grew older. Now they took the cattle for grazing to the rich pasture lands of Vrindavan. The grass was thick and green, while fruit and flowers grew in abundance. There were many lakes and ponds, and the silvery Yamuna wound her way strolling through gently in the forest. Krishna and Balaram were drunk with the beauty of Vrindavan. Krishna loved to tickle his flute to divine melody, to dance with the peacocks, to imitate the cries of the jungle birds, and to entertain all his friends with 1,000 pranks. When tired, he would rest his head on the lap of a goat and would lie down on the soft green grass. Some distance away from where the boys usually played, there was a beautiful Palmyra garden. The gops would watch the juicy tala fruits fall to the ground and rot away. They dared not go and pick the fruit because in the garden lived a ferocious herd of donkeys headed by an asura called Dhenukasura. They would never allow a human being to enter the garden. But the boys longed to eat the juicy fruits and pleaded with Krishna and Balaram to help them get it. Krishna and Balaram entered the garden. Balaram went up to the trees and shook them mightily till the ground was covered with the tala. Dhenukasur heard the noise and was incensed with rage. He charged at Balaram and struck his chest with his hind legs. Then he turned and brayed and made ready for a second attack. Meantime, Balaram seized the animal's hind legs, which had been raised to strike, and whirling it round and round and round in the air, hurled it against a tree. The Asura hit the tree with such force that it crashed into another. The second tree crashed into a third till a heap of trees lay on the ground. Now the other donkeys charged at the two brothers, but soon they too were killed one by one by Balarama and Krishna. From then onwards, the garden was free from the romp and play of the cowherd. Now, next time we will talk about the Kaliya Mardanam, the famous incident. એના ઉપર જ there is the famous જળ કમળ છાડી જાને બાળા સ્વામીએ મારો જાગશે તને મારશે અને બાળ હત્યા લાગશે. So next time when we meet, we will continue the story, the adventures that we are seeing of Krishna and Balaram as they grow up. And next time we will see their encounter with Kaliya. Till then, pranam and namaskar.